So you sent a couple of questions to Christy, and she's WhatsApped me. And I'm going to answer a couple of them. I'm going to ask Ruth to answer a couple. I'm going to ask Brian to answer a couple. And I'm going to ask Ruth a question. I'm going to ask Brian a question, and I'm going to answer one of the questions so that they can have a little chance to think about it. So Ruth, question for you. How many of the 8% of farmers to whom land has been given have been successful? And then also, what is some of the biggest misconceptions around land reform? So those two for you. Let me just take a minute. Brian, your question. What is the role of repentance in what looks like corporate sin? Not just one person, but corporate sin. And then a question for me was, why has the ANC government been so reluctant or poor at land restitution? So I'm going to start there because that was one of the questions that came up. So for me, the quick answer is that people, if I ask you or if I ask people in the street, they might say, well, the many people in ANC have been really busy with their own things, enriching themselves, right? So that's one particular answer. The other is that when 94 happened, we had a Rainbow Nation project. We really did have a way of we wanted to see if we could all work together. And Tutu often said that. Maybe when the TRC happened and we all saw how bad apartheid had been, there would be this groundswell of action. And there wasn't. But there's another answer, and it's an answer that's actually more painful. It's this thing called white flight, and the white flight of capital. It's what happens when Old Mitchell goes and registers on the London Stock Exchange because they think everything is going downhill. It's what happens when kids from Pinelands move to Bishops because black and coloured kids are moving into Pinelands High School. It's a thing that white South Africans are responsible for, and it's the thing that happens when there's a land claim in Bishops and they tie up the land claim in litigation for 13 years because we can. These are some of the reasons why the ANC government haven't actually tried to do what they're now going to try to do. And I'm hoping that the white response is going to be different to what it might have been and what it has been in the past. Okay, so that's my answer. Ruth, your answer.
So your question again was about the 8%.
Yeah. What percentage of the 8% have been successful?
And secondly,
what are the biggest misconceptions around land reform?
Sure. Such a big question. I'll do my best. Okay, so in 1994, the ANC government came in and said, we are going to transfer 30% of commercial farmland into black hands in the first 5 years. And not as an end point, but as a starting point. Like within the first 5 years, we're going to do this. And within the first 5 years, what actually happened was about 1% was transferred. And we're now sitting at around 8%. So this is after, more than 2 decades. So what do we know about what's been successful and what hasn't? My view is we have very patchy information, and actually government isn't even monitoring its own programs. So there's a lot of little bits of anecdotal evidence that's coming out that says, oh, black farmers getting farms, they're not doing very well. Farms are going out of production, it's not productive, it's not efficient, etc. But actually, we do have a bit of information. And our view is that more than half of the people who are getting farms, their livelihoods are improving. And only modestly. So we could be doing much better. So I'm not going to give you like a dramatic story, like it's all terrible or it's all perfect. It's actually quite complicated. So I would say, we think that around 58 to 60% of people who are getting land are improving their livelihoods, but not nearly as much as they should be doing. Surely, if we buy land on the open market, give it to people, we should be giving them a bit of support for production, and they should be improving their lives. We should be able to count this, and we don't. Okay. And the second question is, what are the big misconceptions about land reform? So I think one of the big ones is much as I found this movie very, very moving and powerful, I think that we need to step away from just land claims. Land reform is not all about people claiming back their land. There's section 25(5) in the Constitution which says the state must provide equitable access to land. It's actually an instruction to the state. The state has to do it. It's called land redistribution. And you don't have to prove that you have a historical claim to the land. The state simply must provide land to people who are in greatest need. And the state is failing to do it. And I think that what we're going to see in the next year or so, maybe 18 months or so, is that we're going to start to see people saying, actually, we want a law that gives us this right. Where's the law? For people who want land, for people who are landless, for people who are evicted farm workers, for people who've been kicked off of communal land to make way for big mining deals. Where is the law that people can draw on to say, actually, you as the state, you have an obligation to serve us as the citizens? So I think that we're at a moment, Sharlene, of turning the tables around and saying, it's not just a question of how do we strengthen the hand of the state, because the whole debate around expropriation without compensation is about strengthening the hand of the state. I think we need to turn the tables around and say, how do we strengthen the hands of citizens? And for citizens to call upon the state and say, we the people demand that you give us this land. We demand that you respond to our needs. So I think that that's actually quite a critical moment that we're in.
Thanks, Ruth. Brian?
Well, that's a very difficult one in terms of repentance, but corporate repentance. And I think a number of our people who are in corporate are in our churches. And I think one of the things we who are the church leaders need to start preaching a very different message. That instead, corporate repentance, instead of we taking some of the huge money that the directors of some of the corporate put into the church, we need to be asking the question, how do you pay those who are less or are getting less in your company? We need to be sending the money back, actually, if there is no just payment for those who are working in some of the corporates. And one of the things that just came into my head as we was asking that question, I just saw a picture of Koela and AfriForum. Because it was amazing how we saw the bulldog Koela and knew at the moment he got to be the one now who went to AfriForum, knew the reason to be able to fight with them, because his body is incredible in that sense. But what a joy will it be if Koela were to think differently with AfriForum. Because in terms of that farm area, if there is a proper treatment in the corporate world in terms of the farm workers actually protect the farmers. There's so unsafety in those areas. It's because sometimes of the treatment. But if you care, you love, you do well. I'm thinking also corporate, also in terms of the communities where this malls seem to erupt or be erected in our communities. What is the way of making sure that some of the profits are plowed back into the communities? How are the corporates also going to say, we are rather going to take less pay instead of taking more and more? And we see ShopRite and those who work at the till and the manager. If the manager will take the main guy, he can take just half of his salary and plow the rest of the money to the rest of those till who take workers. It will be phenomenal.
Thank you, Brian. Brian, another one for you is, you spoke a little bit about the gentrification issue. Maybe you want to say some more about that. But also the question, what is your opinion about groups like Reclaim the City, who are occupying buildings in this marked for private development when they could be used for low-income housing? So that question, something about reclaimability and gentrification. And then, Ruth, I don't know if you know the answer to this one, but what is stopping local municipality from building more homes in District 6? And why is this land not utilised? And why is the pace of change being so slow? So that's a question for you. And then I've got two that I'm going to take, but I'm going to just refer them on a little bit. So one is, as a white South African who doesn't own land, what could I do as an act of restitution? I've got 24 ideas in a few minutes. And how should the suburban Christian respond in their daily life to the land issue? I've got 24 ideas in a few minutes. Right?
That's right. It's a complicated one, but I mean, people know that Reclaim the City. It's actually an organization that was started by Zaki Ahmad. I think, if I was given a question, I think that is the case. And again, it's sad to say that that is not a church. That is in that space. Right? There's only one church that seems to be behind that whole thing, or is supporting. But the rest of the churches, when they heard what those guys did, they pulled themselves away. But a number of the people who are occupying that hospital, there are people who are suffering from gentrification. People who have been evicted from their home, those who have been staying for years in some of the area there of Woodstock. But also that hospital was earmarked for social housing in the community. But both the ANC and the DA, they never did anything about it. So the problem is both governments who are not seeking to do something that is well. I think they seem to be mostly concerned about the corporate, not be concerned about the
I might be just reiterating what Brian said, but I think that, no, in cities, where people are claiming back land, the land that is under claim has such great value, enormous value. Poor people living in Mitchell's Plain, living in Grassy Park, have claims that are worth millions upon millions of rands, and the state is not processing those claims. What's actually happening, and what's been happening for the past 10 years, is that the state has been going to people and saying, let us enter into a deal. We'll negotiate a deal with you. Instead of having a long drawn-out court process, I'll just offer you 40,000 rand. Between 40 and 50,000 rand has been paid in return for people rescinding their claims to places like Bishop's Court and Rondebosch and so on, and Wynberg. So the stories that we heard earlier, these are very painful stories where people actually, often with elderly people who are going to die and the oral history is going to disappear and the memory, and people want to have closure. And so people have been settling cheaply, very cheaply, for claims that are actually worth a lot. So why hasn't the municipality done more? I think that actually we're sitting with a very bizarre situation where we have an ANC national government that's responsible for land reform and a DA provincial and local government that are meant to be implementing locally. And they're playing off against one another. Neither one wants the other to look good again. So I think that we have a standoff. We have a standoff underway, and I cannot tell you how many times there's been a sort of a settlement of District 6, big moment. Every time before an election, there's a big settlement of District 6, but it's actually not settled. It's actually not settled, and in fact, the developers are moving in as fast as the communities are actually getting in their claims. So we're actually not moving forward. And what I would say to you is, in response to your question about urban claims and municipalities, is one way to look at land reform is an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing opportunity. It's a way to think about our rural areas and to think, how could we get beyond having white commercial farms and black Bantustans? Can we overcome that divide? How do we get beyond having white suburbs and black townships? How do we get beyond that divide? It's all about overcoming special apartheid. And it's about blurring the lines. And that's what we have to get to grips with.
And so one of the things that Ruth has said is that when people want land, some people want physical land, but most people want security, livelihoods. And so on the peripheries of our city, people want something that they can fall back on, but they want to live in the city. And both are part of the solution. Brian, I don't know if you've got another comment, because I want to just...
Just another comment also. I think it's a lot of people in the suburbs who are in the Ratepayer Association, because those are also the areas that sets the law, and a number of those people are in our churches. And how do we equip those people to think more justly? How do we equip the developers also, not just to take the money or the land and give people a little money, but where the huge land that has been sold and the person's given just a little bit of money, instead of maybe even putting a proper house for that person, and then say, hey, we can build many other houses that you can still also benefit from. But it seems that the money just goes back to those who are the developers. I think we need to re-educate our church members about justice and fairness. Because if we don't do that, we're going to continue to have a crisis in our country that can get bloody. But we can prevent it as a church.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you very much, Ruth.